All right, folks. Well, this is a horrible story. Another horrible story from Northern Gaza. Israel detains the director of one of Northern Gaza's last functioning hospitals during a raid. Israel's army detained the director of one of Northern Gaza's last functioning hospitals as overnight strikes elsewhere in the territory killed 9 people, including children, Palestinian medical officials said Saturday. Israel's military alleged that Hamas militants were using the facility and said over 240 people were detained. Gaza's health ministry said Dr. Hussam Abu Safia, director of Kamal Adwan Hospital, was arrested Friday along with dozens of other staff and taken to an interrogation center. The ministry said Israeli troops stormed the hospital and forced many staff and patients outside and told them to strip in winter weather, according to the ministry. We do have some video of that. Israel's military on Saturday confirmed it detained the hospital director for questioning and called him a suspected Hamas operative while providing no evidence. So you see, now even the AP is able to write while providing no evidence. It said it encircled the hospital and special forces entered and found weapons in the area. It said militants fired on its forces and they were eliminated. An Israeli military spokesman, Lieutenant Colonel Nadav Shoshani, later asserted to journalists that most of those detained are Hamas operatives. On Friday, the military denied it had entered or set fire to the hospital complex, but acknowledged it had ordered people outside. The military repeated claims that Hamas militants operate inside Kamal Adwan, which hospital officials have denied. The hospital has been hit multiple times over the past 3 months by Israeli troops waging an offensive in largely isolated northern Gaza against Hamas fighters it says have regrouped. The health ministry said a strike on the hospital earlier this week killed 5 medical personnel. Med Global, the humanitarian organization for which Abu Safia worked, said Friday it was gravely concerned about him. It said the incident follows the October detention of 5 other staff, calling it an alarming and egregious pattern of targeting medical personnel and spaces. Israel's nearly 15-month-old campaign of bombardment and the ground offenses has devastated Gaza's health sector. The World Health Organization has said the raid on Kamal Adwan has put northern Gaza's last major health facility out of service after growing restrictions on access, adding that this horror must end and health care must be protected. So yes, there's a statement from the WHO, oddly enough, doesn't mention the state of Israel by name here. This morning's raid on Kamal Adwan Hospital has put this last major health facility in North Gaza out of service. Initial reports indicate that some key departments were severely burnt and destroyed during the raid. 60 health workers and 25 patients in critical condition, including those on ventilators, reportedly remain in the hospital. The patients in moderate to severe condition were forced to evacuate to the destroyed and non-functional Indonesian hospital. WHO is deeply concerned for their safety. This raid on Kamal Adwan Hospital comes after escalating restrictions on access for WHO and partners and repeated attacks on or near the facility since early October. Such hostilities and the raids are undoing all of our efforts and support to keep the facility minimal functional. The systematic dismantling of the health system in Gaza is a death sentence for tens of thousands of Palestinians in need of health care. This horror must end and health care must be protected. Ceasefire. So here is some video. Rami Abdul says this is the story of Kamal Adwan. This is how the story, of Kamal Adwan Hospital ends. Israel arrests the medical staff of Kamal Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza. Merry Christmas. So there's no nudity in this video, but we do see the march that was referred to in the AP article. Just hell and ruin as far as the eye can see, with people being marched through. just this apocalyptic landscape. Now, this next photo is one for the ages. Mondo Weiss tweets out, "This is the last photo of Dr. Hussam Abu Safia, the director of Kamal Adwan Hospital, walking toward Israeli tanks before being detained by Israeli forces after they destroyed the last hospital in northern Gaza. His current condition is unknown." So it's a little hard to see the tanks there because they kind of blend into the rest of the rubble. But toward the upper left-hand corner of the image there, you can see the 2 Israeli tanks and the doctor walking straight for them. His whereabouts and condition still unknown as far as I know since we started this stream. "Our leaders," says Rohan Talbot, "must demand the immediate and safe release of Dr. Hussam Abu Safia and all detained Gaza health workers. Health workers are not a target, and impunity for Israel's destruction of Palestinian healthcare must end. Please share." So Dropsite dropped this interview. This wasn't their interview. This is from Channel 4. Dr. Tanya Haj Hassan addresses Israel's burning of Kamal Adwan Hospital, the last functioning hospital in northern Gaza. She talks about a little bit of what we've been reviewing so far. So this is about 3 minutes. We'll play this.
He's been detained. We've heard that he's been detained and heavily beaten, that he was placed in kind of white detainee clothing after being stripped, and that he has been taken to a nearby school. We thought initially, we're not sure, but we know that he's been detained.
He is the director of this facility. What was the last functioning hospital in northern Gaza? What does it mean that some of the medical staff have been detained?
Despite repeated calls for international protection by the staff at the hospital, including the hospital director, Hussam Abu Safia, who just 4 days ago pleaded with the world, saying that the world must understand that our hospital is being targeted with intent to kill and forcibly displace us. And in fact, that is exactly what's happening. We know that 5 healthcare workers from Kamal Adwan were just killed recently. We know that hundreds of healthcare workers, patients, and caretakers were forcibly taken out of the hospital. They were stripped. Many were beaten with, we're told, sticks, batons. They were spat on after being stripped naked and kept in the cold for hours. There are some that have been released, and they're providing these testimonies that I'm sharing with you right now. But for the rest, we don't know about their whereabouts, their well-being, whether they're alive or dead.
We've had limited accounts from some of the patients who have emerged, but we don't know if that is all of them. And what about the patients who are in the most serious condition requiring ventilation? What about them? What
the Israeli military has essentially done to these patients is given them a death sentence. So we understand that they were forcibly moved to the Indonesian hospital. The Indonesian hospital is the 3rd public hospital in Gaza. It was mostly put out of function this past week by the Israeli military. It's been destroyed for the most part. It has no access to electricity, no access to running water, and the oxygen supply has also been impacted, so they cannot provide oxygen.
What the Israeli military is saying is that they had no connection to the fire there. They're saying that they safely evacuated the patients, and they're saying that the hospital was a Hamas military stronghold. Now, we've heard that claim before. They haven't provided evidence. What do you make of that?
I think 15 months into this, we've all heard this propaganda, this military propaganda shared over and over and over again on mainstream media. I think at one point, you learn from the first, second, and third time that these claims are proven false, and they were proven false with all their previous attacks on essentially every single hospital in the Gaza Strip. So at this point, honestly, I struggle to tolerate even listening to that as a response to anything. Even if that were true, which has been proven over and over again that it is not, the Israeli military has essentially decimated the entire healthcare system for a population that is besieged, starved, and undergoing a genocide.
Yes. Like, I don't even know what to say at this point to keep doing these segments over and over again. I mean, at a certain point, what do you say? At a certain point, you're just bearing witness. The fact that this has gone on for now 15 months, it is beyond words. It really is. I mean, I'm not in the line of work where I can afford to be speechless, but I am. I mean, what do you say to that? If you just look at the end, we've heard all the stories before. We've heard it all before. That's what makes it infuriating. That's what makes it just so unspeakably horrific. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the point is just to wear people down to the point where it becomes normalized. Caitlin Johnston said, she wrote in a tweet a while back, she says, I kind of hate that I'm become desensitized to it, because you can't control whether you're desensitized. It's an emotional reaction. Like the viscera of something, the shock of something is what hits your emotional system. And so at a certain point, you become adapted to it. You can hate yourself for it. And I understand what she's saying, and I struggle with the same thing. Like, it hits less hard after a time because you've come to expect it. That's just an emotional response that you have that's beyond your control. And what else do you feel but that watching this? How this has been able to go on for as long as it has. I mean, the thing that I don't get tired of talking about, the thing that I can speak to with a little bit of freshness in my voice, is how utterly contemptible a human being you have to be to still at this phase of this be going out and parroting the party line on Israel, which almost all of our government does, almost all of our major media figures do. It's mask off for an entire civilization. Forget about America, forget about the West. It's mask off for an entire civilization.
Yeah, well, this is a big part of why I have no patience for the celebration of the ascension of the Trump administration. The first thing he did was appoint the fucking craziest, most foaming at the mouth psychopathic Zionists that he could find. Now, if you're running around saying America first, well, then you should not support Donald Trump's administration. You should be fighting this administration. What? You only care about visas? Only care about visas? That's the only America First issue that you care about? What about all this support that we're giving to this country that's committing a genocide? And a lot of MAGA did claim, this wasn't reported a lot, but I experienced it. A lot of MAGA, and you can find this all online, go on X. You'll find a lot of anti-Israel MAGA. You find a lot of MAGA that don't like this. Well, but you're willing to tolerate it. This is why. Like, I never had any patience for the idea that, well, yeah, they're messed up on Israel. Okay, well, then why didn't you vote for Harris? Right. Why was that a red line? But it's not here. Why is it not a red line here? Ukraine. Hand in glove with Jake Sullivan.
Right.
That's what they're saying now. Hand in glove with Jake Sullivan. So where are you? Where are you? You only care about the visas? Let's face it. Most of the MAGA base are not up for those Silicon Valley jobs.
Right.
So what do you, that bothers you, but this does not. This does not get your outrage.